as we're getting started with ThursdAI. I haven't done this in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This is, because... Never mind. Welcome to ThursdAI, everyone. Welcome. Today is July 25th. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases, and I've missed this. I've been on a holiday break for the past 2 weeks. There hasn't been a live show for the past 2 weeks. And it was my birthday, so happy birthday, Alex. I celebrated with my family. I had a lot of fun. And Sam Altman just dropped a thread, so we're going to see what's that about. I wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post about why US needs to maintain its lead, blah, blah, blah. No, not interesting. It's just another blog post. All right, back to ThursdAI. I'm so excited just because I'm waiting for some breaking news from OpenAI as well, because they can't just let the lead go. For the past 2 weeks, we haven't had a show. And last week, it was an insane week in AI as well. OpenAI released GPT4o mini. We haven't talked about this. There was a bunch of updates. And I got a bunch of feedback from all of you saying, hey, how dare you take a break? How dare you, Alex, take a break? What's going on? While I was having fun with my kids. And I'm very happy that the break that I took was last week and not this week, because is this week insane or what, folks? Oh my God. This week, we've got the open weights state-of-the-art model that beats GPT4o, and I honestly did not believe that this day will come and I'd be able to talk about this live on stage with my friends. And I'm very excited for today because we're going to cover all of the releases that we had. And not only did Meta release LLaMa 3.1 this week, also Mistral followed this up with another release of theirs, of Mistral Large 2, and then also DeepSeek quietly updated and without fanfare updated DeepSeek Coder, which is probably the best coding open weights model. Actually, don't know if they updated just the API or already updated the model as well. And not only that, we're still waiting for some other stuff to drop in probably around 30 minutes, if the leaks are true and the embargoes are true. So we're going to sit here and we're obviously going to monitor everything and bring it to you live, as we always do on the show. And my breaking news button is ready. Let me test this real quick. Let me test. I don't know. I haven't been here for a while. Let me test if this works. Okay, it works. So I'm going to just add a few friends of mine as speakers just to test, because I don't want any technical issues on the show. So let me just double check. LDJ, if you can hear me, do a little unmute and let's see if you can hear me and I can hear you.
Yep, I could hear you.
Awesome. Coming through loud and clear. Welcome, LDJ. Welcome. And Wolfram, let's see if you can come through as well.
I can hear you loud and clear. Hope you can hear me too.
Yes, amazing.
And I missed you. Back.
I missed you too, brother. I missed you too. It's been crazy 2 weeks, but I'm very happy that this is the week that I didn't miss, because Mark Zuckerberg, the GOAT, decided to go live. And this time he did one exclusive interview with our friend from the Rundown AI, Rowan Cheng. So a big shout out to Rowan. Did you guys see this? Did you guys see Rowan Cheng from the Rundown AI just land an exclusive interview with Mark Zuckerberg with the chain and everything? So shout out Rowan. A huge shout out for this crazy exclusive interview. Mark went up and said, hey, here is everything. And he talked about the model, the distillation. We're obviously going to do whatever we do in ThursdAI, which is we're going to do a TLDR of everything we're going to talk about. I just really wanted to just collect the vibes super quick. And just as I'm looking through, I'm scrolling through the list of friends in the audience. I see Robert Scoble, I see Ryan Carson, who's sick. I hope you get better, brother. I see Technium, I see Zenova, Jun Yang here. Jun Yang, feel free to come up. All of you, by the way, welcome to come up. All the regular friends of the show who've been here at least a few times. Mark came up and talked about this model. And first of all, I want to say, before we dive into the model itself, the fact that this dude, my age, I think he's younger than me, I don't know, he's the owner of this insane huge company, runs billions of dollars, whatever, and he knows what they released to this level is just incredible to me. He talks about distillation, he talks about the technical details to this level was just I was floored. I was this is the dude. And also the amount of belief and just strong opinions he has about open source AI was just incredible to see. Not only did they release models, which we've been waiting for, we're going to talk about, in excruciating detail. He also released an op-ed. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read the op-ed. Feel free to chime in if you want to chime in a little bit on the op-ed. He released a manifesto basically of why real OpenAI, not the company OpenAI. There's open source matters, and that manifesto is also incredible. And so this was definitely the week for open source AI. I feel for maybe since the release. I think this week overshadows the release of LLaMa 3. This overshadows the release of LLaMa 3. LLaMa 3 came out and it was incredible. We're yay, LLaMa 3. And then it was great. This is the first time, as far as I'm doing ThursdAI, and even before, that we get a model, since I think Stable Diffusion, that this model beats the foundational models. And I think it's incredible. I think it's worth this applause. And we'll get to Wolfram to hear what you have to say about the Meta LLaMa 3, and then we'll do a TLDR. So shout out to Meta. Yeah, go ahead, man.
I wanted to say, yes, the original release was actually a pre-release, as Mark said, because he wanted to put out the 3 before it was really ready. So that was the thing. And I was pretty disappointed with 3 because of the small context, only 8K. I mean, it was double what we had before, but we already had much bigger model. So this is a real LLaMa 3, I would say, and it's great to have it now. And now I'm really happy. Now bring multimodal next, but I don't complain. So it's multilingual as well, and it's available in Europe everywhere. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
And we're going to discuss multilinguality. We're going to discuss multimodality as well. LDJ, go ahead. Give us initial thoughts when you see this drop. 2 days ago? I don't even know how much time passed. I think 2 days.
Yeah, it's been about 2 days. It was on the 23rd, so it's 25th today. And I did want to mention real quick that you mentioned Zuck put out an op-ed about being in support of open source, and Sam Altman just dropped something literally 5 minutes ago, and it's an op-ed written by Sam on Washington Post titled "Who Will Control the Future of AI?" And it actually has, I searched quickly for anything talking about open source, and he does say one sentence about open source, basically saying that he thinks it should happen and thinks open source is a good thing.
Wait, Sam thinks open source is a good thing?
Yeah, I could just read the single sentence.
Yeah,
real quick.
give us a quick shout out.
Yeah, he literally just says, quote, "Making sure open source models are readily available to developers in those nations," referencing different countries, "will further bolster our advantage."
Oh,
I guess you have to read more of the context of why he thinks open source will bolster America's advantage, but yeah.
Maybe he should listen to his own advice then. So Sam, if you're listening to this, please release some stuff on open source. We would love it. We would love some stuff from OpenAI more in the open source. Maybe 3.5. You guys, basically 3.5 is dead, right? I don't think it's possible to use it anymore. So maybe 3.5. All right, we have breaking news from Lincoln. All right, folks, we've been waiting for this. Let's go. Let's get into it. And then we're going to talk about Meta LLaMa and everything. AI breaking news coming at you only on ThursdAI. We've been waiting for this, and I literally just saw this a few minutes before I stepped into the space. I don't have this in my notes, but Google DeepMind just dropped. We're presenting the first AI to solve international mathematical Olympiad problems at a silver medalist level. It combines AlphaProof, a new breakthrough model for formal reasoning, and Alpha Geometry 2, an improved version of a previous system. International mathematical Olympiad problems are ridiculously hard, and so I'm just going to keep reading and then we're going to discuss this. Our system had to solve this year's 6 IMO problems involving algebra, combinatorics, geometry, number theory. We then invited mathematicians and Dr. Joseph to oversee scoring. It solved 4 problems to get 28 points. For non-geometry, it uses AlphaProof, which can create proofs in Lean. I don't know what Lean is. I'm assuming some math stuff. This is basically, if you guys remember this whole thing, recent thing where everybody goes crazy, where we asked ChatGPT what's a bigger number, 9.9 or 9.11. This is basically the answer to this, I'm assuming. Yeah, this is quite big. I've seen that some people claim that OpenAI also has something like this, maybe with QStar or something. And there's some leaks that we're about to get Matthew at link from Jimmy Apples. But yeah, Google DeepMind just dropped a new update basically that says, and Is it in Nature like they always do, or is it just a blog post? Let's see. Just a blog post that they've solved, that AI now solves International Mathematical Olympiad in silver level medal. This is crazy. This is crazy because we know that just like predicting the next token is not that great at math. Anyone? Quick reactions as you guys are reading through this? Maybe folks in the comments, feel free to also comment.
Yeah, I was wanting to clarify real quick. Lean is just the programming language that mathematicians use commonly for things like theorems and like formalizing things in a programmatic way that can easily be verified.
Amazing. Thank you, LDJ. Let's see what else we can glean from this release. That's interesting. Yeah, they have this. They have an example of Lean. Let me post this also to the top of the space. When presented with a problem, AlphaProof attempts to prove or disprove it by searching over possible steps in Lean. So this is what maybe people talked about, maybe Q-Star. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking, I don't even know if I'm
that
talking.
makes it,
Go ahead, Nistan.
that actually makes it not all that impressive. Because Lean is used for a theorem prover, so it can do very hard math, not necessarily even competition, but for more stuff that physicists need to do or theoretical physics and other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then they need to use Lean, but it sounds like they just trained the model on this language and then I had it solved. But we'll see if it can solve 911.9.9. Well, no, it's good.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, and we'll move on because if this is an attempt by Google DeepMind to steal thunder from Meta, we're not going to get it because Meta is still, LLaMa 3 is still, the 3.1 is still the biggest news of this week. Last thing I'll say is that powered with a novel search algorithm, Alpha Geometry 2, can now solve 83% of all historical problems from the past 25 years compared to 53% rate of its predecessor. So this is quite a huge jump from 53% to 83%. And it solved this year's IMO problem within 19 seconds. So this is quite crazy because it also does geometry. LDJ, last comments about this, or Juniang or Wolfram, and then if not, we'll move forward.
Yeah, there's an article about 24 hours ago from The Verge actually on this, but I think they maybe accidentally published it early or something when they weren't supposed to. So they like immediately took it down. But according to that The Verge article that got taken down, it said it was able to solve 4 out of 6 international math Olympiad problems that they presented it with. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep. And so shout out to folks at DeepMind for moving this forward. And as we know that just next token prediction is not that good at math, even though everybody keeps doing the same thing, we keep throwing like math-y problems on next token prediction and showing like, see, it doesn't work. And then everybody's like, oh, this goes viral like crazy. All right, folks, I think it's time for the TLDR of everything we're going to cover. And then I think it's time to dive in, or I guess delve in, to LLaMa 3.1 updates. And it's going to take us a while to cover because there's just so much to talk about. So we're not going to have any guests this week, but there's so many people I want to talk to that I reached out to. So look forward for next episodes for actual like deep dives and guests because I have a huge queue of like awesome people coming. But for now, let's do a quick TLDR of everything we're going to talk about on ThursdAI for July 25th. Let's go. This is hopefully everything. Hopefully, because we're still waiting, I think, for some additional news, maybe from OpenAI. Here's everything that, at least to right now, I have in my notes for July 25th, ThursdAI 2024. And obviously, the biggest fish, the biggest thing, the biggest entree on our menu today to discuss is LLaMa 3.1. Meta released and gave us 3 new models in open weights, including an incredibly detailed paper, just an incredibly detailed paper full of nuggets, full of information. I honestly will not be able to relay most of it still because I'm still like, we did multiple paper club. Never mind. So what did we get from LLaMa 3? We got 3 new models, 405 billion parameters is finally here. The biggest Meta LLaMa 3.1, 405 billion parameters. It's a dense model. It's a GPT4 level intelligence. In fact, it beats GPT4o on multiple benchmarks. We also got updates to B and 8 billion parameters as well. They are updated across the board. They have new capabilities as well, including tool use and multilinguality updated as well. We also got a license update, and so we're going to talk about that and what this means. And we also seen that these models are now supported out of the gate with multiple providers. So you can now actually use these models instead of waiting for quantization. Meta just released also a bunch of evals as these models drop, but we're also going to do like an evals roundup. There's a lot of evaluation providers. There's a lot of like new benchmarks in evals that we know and already like respect that we're going to cover and run through super quick, including our own reactions and folks here on stage who've tried these models already at this point. There's just so much to cover here. Besides the new bigger model, there's also the capabilities of the smaller models, the new capabilities across the board. I think the main thing to also cover is that the context window is huge. It's 128,000 tokens in the context window, finally including a new rope scaling method that was outlined in the paper. And you can download these models, which is incredible. So we have a state-of-the-art beating GPT4o models that you can click on the download button, which is not only refreshing, it's quite incredible, and we've been waiting for this, and it's incredible to just cover this as somebody who did this for a while. And there's probably more stuff that I haven't gotten in my notes, so we're going to also discuss those. And then, like a day after this, which was yesterday, Mistral, the French company that we all know and love, that gave us incredible models like Mistral 7B that we all remember and love, announced Large V2, which is a 123 billion parameter model, which is currently, I think, in their API, and probably you can download as well. It's a non-commercially licensed model that you can use via their API, but you cannot like download and post it on production. It's a strong multilinguality, and they claim state-of-the-art on function calling, which is interesting. Also very high on benchmarks as well. Trained on a lot of code. If you guys remember, recently they released CodeStral and MathStral. So based on their experience with this, they shoved like a bunch of that into this new model as well. And it already beats, it's quite incredible. They released it the day after LLaMa 3.1, and it already beats LLaMa 3.1 on at least a few of the coding metrics, which is quite crazy because it was released a day after. So they probably waited and said, hey, let's wait and then run some evals and see if we can give a good story. So a huge shout out to Mistral for this. And now we also have an update from DeepSeek Coder. DeepSeek Coder for a long time was the best open source model for code. And then for a day or so, LLaMa 3.1, 405 billion parameter was probably the best coder. And I think DeepSeek just released an update as well that beats it. And it looks like DeepSeek Coder V2 2407. So that was yesterday as well. It looks like it's getting to 3.5 sonnet level. So we're going to also cover this and why it's only via API. You can download this as well. We also just had breaking news from DeepMind. They announced Alpha Geometry 2 that beats the International Math Olympiad at silver medalist level, which we just had breaking news. We're probably going to cover this as well. In this week's buzz category, all I could do this week is try to do some comparisons. And so I'll just walk you through some related stuff as it happens to relate to all the releases. I ran some evaluations between the different LLaMa providers using weights and biases weave to just see how different quantization in different providers affect some outputs. So we're going to walk through that because some providers, which launched the same day as LLaMa released, some of them actually serve quantized models, which, not to blame them, but some of those reply in a different style, which is very interesting. So we're going to walk through that and maybe see an example with using weights and biases weave, which is our evaluation framework of weights and biases. In the vision and video category, I don't have a lot this week besides some updates from Kling. Every week in vision and video category, I can't wait to tell you, hey, OpenAI finally released Sora. They didn't. Maybe this week they want to overshadow Meta and release Sora for us. Maybe. I don't know. But it haven't happened yet. But in the vision video category, I will say that LLaMa 3.5V is a thing. And in the paper, they actually talk about that they've trained but not released a vision model and multimodal model of LLaMa 3.1. And they actually gave us a path towards it. There's like a diagram of how they trained these models. And they also talk about the fact that these models will not be released, at least in Europe, because of some European AI laws. So we're going to cover this just at least a little bit, which is sad, and it's a bummer. In the voice and audio category, I saw that the company Daily announced a new open standard for real-time voice and audio AI. It's called RTVI. We're going to cover this a little bit. The demos are great, and I hopefully I'll be able to do like a live demo. We already did a few demos of live kind of conversational AIs, and they weren't that great previously, so we'll see if this demo could work. It reacts like super quick, and it's an open standard, so we definitely should talk about this as well. And in the AI art and diffusion category, we have Stability, not silently, but trying to also get their day in the sun, but probably not the best week for Stability to announce this. They announced something called Stable Video 4D, which is you provide a video and they receive a novel view video from 8 new angles, which is quite crazy. It's quite crazy to see, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think this is most of what we currently have to talk about on ThursdAI for July 25th. I think that's plenty because we're going to start with LLaMa 3, and I think we can talk about at least that for an hour. Let's actually get started with open source. Open source AI, let's get it started. All right, let's get it started. We're obviously going to talk about Meta, LLaMa 3.1, and I was thinking about how to approach this. So I've been talking about this since the leaks. Monday, I think, we started seeing leaks. The model was leaked, first of all, by Miku. If you guys remember Miku. Miku 2 was leaked, and apparently this was this model. And then some metrics were leaked because something on GitHub, and then the model card was leaked, blah, blah, blah. So we already started thinking about this model starting from Monday and what this means. And then the actual kind of like model card was released, and the model was released. And I was like trying to think about how to approach this beast of a release. And I think that we'll just start with the biggest model, with the 405 billion parameters. It's a huge model. I think it weighs like 900 gigabytes. What does it weigh? You download this multiple times, I think, at this point. I think it's like incredibly.
Dude, like 2,000 people have grabbed it off of my Hugging Face now. The file is 800. The biggest one is like 820 gigs. If you get it in full BF16, it's 400 and about 410 gigs in 8-bit. And then there's a bunch of other quantization. We only like a mixed 1-bit one that like still responds coherently.
1 bit.
Better than the 70B, but it's 100 gigs. And yeah, that's about, yeah, the full one is like 820.
And a lot of it is synthetic data. They actually go deep into the synthetic data recipes in the paper, which we can probably cover a little bit later. It has 128,000 tokens in the context window, which is incredible. And when we got Meta LLaMa 3 back in a couple of months ago, we were like, why is it only 8K? And now we're getting finally a proper frontier model. And I think the best thing about this, obviously, are the evals, are the metrics. The 405 billion parameter model is not easy to run on your own. Like, it's not a model that you'd be running on your Mac, because it requires, I want to say 16 H100, 16 A100s. Maybe Nissan can help me out here. It requires non-consumer hardware, basically, to be able to run this, even in, I think, half precision. Nissan, help me out here. Unless you have some magic that you already run this on CPU or something.
Yeah, actually, I do, because like 10 days ago, LLaMa CVP released scalable vector extensions for CPUs that makes use of newer ARM server chips. And that one bumped up the speed by 3 times. It's now on CPU runs up to a whopping 1.67 tokens per second. And otherwise, in 8-bit was half a token per second on a 64-core server CPU, which you can even buy these days for $1,500 or $2,000. But yeah, at best, you can have a $2,000 machine is running like a token and a half a second. Or you can use a slightly more quantized version, which with some custom schemas, it doesn't seem to have that much loss. And I can comment a bit on what I think the FP8 guys did wrong, but that's probably for another space. when they hosted it. But yeah, I think you can run it on. Haven't tested yet on an M2 Ultra, but you need the biggest one. You need the 192. You need like a $6,000 Mac Studio to run, and that one should be able to get a usable speed.
I've seen also folks
7+8.
from Exo. Maybe Ray can post this in the comment. Run this on a few Mac studios together, run something like this. Anyway, this model is huge. You cannot necessarily run this on consumer hardware. However, the release immediately Meta partnered with multiple providers, which was great. Mark Zuckerberg actually shouted out Grok, our friends from Grok with a Q, not Grok with a K, and multiple others like Fireworks and Deep Infra and a bunch of others. And all of these providers, you can now access some of these 405B already there. Perplexity already supports this. This is like the power of open source and the power of the infrastructure and ecosystem that Zuckerberg is talking about, because it's basically a drop-in replacement. And for many of these folks, they can just upload the weights and then support this model in multiple of these places, because it pretty much is the same, I think, chat templates and everything. And so let's talk about a little bit about the metrics. So we talked about the context window, 128. The 405 billion parameter model has a MMLU score of 88.6. It beats GPT-4 on several benchmarks. If eval, so instruction following, I think, eval. GSM 8K we know is not the best. It leaks sometimes into the training data set, but it beats GPT-4 at 96.8%, Arc Challenge at 96.9%, and comes very close in other metrics, very close. And we said it's 15 trillion tokens and trained on, I think, a lot of synthetic data, maybe something like even 90% of something like synthetic data, at least the SFT, which is the secondary stage, a lot of synthetic data. In realm of new capabilities, now, even at the evaluation stage, we got supporting tool use, which is basically the ability to call function calling and tool use, which is very well received by everybody, because for the longest time we know that these models, it's one thing to give us token prediction, but it's a completely different thing if we want to actually use this for something more than just, hey, write me a story or summarize this thing. We want these models to actually do something. And in order for these models to actually do something, for example, search the web, these models need tool use. They need to be able to call different services and tools and functions. And so it's very good that Meta knows this, and they've built in these probably data sets. And not only that, they actually showed in the metrics they released that the tool use scores they posted together with these metrics are very high and comparable to even beating GPT-4. So the tool use that they've used, the metric is BFCL, so Berkeley Function Calling Leaderboard, and Nexus 0. This model beats GPT-4 Omni on the BFCL by significant amount. GPT-4 Omni gets 80 score, and the LLaMa 3.1 405 billion parameter gets 88 on BFCL. So like it calls functions better. I'll remind everyone that a year ago, OpenAI came up with the function calling concept. Almost literally a year ago, in June or something, June 16th, I think. OpenAI came up with this concept. We asked for JSON mode, if you guys remember. OpenAI is like, no, we'll give you function calling. And they invented this whole thing. And now they get beaten by OpenWeight's model. I don't think they're going to take this lightly. I think we're going to see something from OpenAI. Claude 3.5 Sonnet is still the leading model, which is quite incredible. We also got it, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Quite incredible. The additional thing we saw from new capabilities for these models is multilinguality. The data mix that they've posted on the paper supports, I think, 10% of multilingual, something like this. LDJ, maybe you have the score in front of you, but they also posted on the paper the data mix of the different data sets they have. And multilinguality now is also introduced in evaluations. And there's a multilingual eval called multilingual MGSM. And on that, LLaMa 3.1 also beats GPT-4 Omni at 91.6%, which GPT-4 Omni is 90%. Folks, this is crazy. I cannot honestly believe that I'm describing an OpenWeight's model that we can download if you have almost a terabyte of space, and we can technically run if you have access to all these GPUs, or if you're able to run this on CPU, and it beats GPT-4o, which is the model that's the best right now for OpenAI. I cannot believe this. Yeah, I would love to pause here and just hear you guys' reactions to these metrics, to the fact that we have this now. Feel free to just unmute and go. Maybe Wolfram, you can go, and then LDJ.
Okay, yeah, it's finally here. So I'm really happy because, like I said before, the original release of LLaMa 3 was a bit disappointing. and I was still using Mistral 8x7, I think. And now we have this, and while the big model is great, not many people can use it. But the 70B is there and the 8B is there, so that is great. They brought out the whole package. And I've used even the 8B a lot. I used to say the small models aren't good enough, so I wouldn't even consider them. But now it really is good. I compared it with the Mistral Nemo and with the 27B Google Gamma 2. And it was better in many ways. And I think this is a new little guy that can really compete with the big guy. So that was a big thing. And I think a lot of people will use it. And the LLaMa CPP, I don't think it has the final patches already. So everybody who has used it as a GGOF probably hasn't even seen the full potential yet, the real version, just because some stuff is missing still.
In order to be able to run this image?
You can run it, but it is running the old inference code, and there has been a bit of changes. Maybe Nisten has more information, more in detail, what is missing now, and there's a patch, so we can run it, but it should get even better when everything is merged in.
Yeah, I recompiled my own version to do the custom per weight quants, so it worked. I already used it in production. I summarized the Monday's room from Clubhouse from a 2-hour talk. It took 2 hours for it to load it into context. And then like another half an hour to generate but the output was amazing. It's so annoying how good the output is, because you can tell it's better than the 70B. It's definitely better. It's noticeably better. And it's so annoying because now you got to load everything into context cache, and then you got to start it as a batch job and wait and see what comes out. It is extremely annoying that this is 405B. You start using it, and I've been using it on Hugging Chat a lot because it's faster. I'm surprised their servers are still up. They're like halfway dying from Hugging Chat. They're posting it for free. So everyone just go on hf.co/chat or just use the, oh God, I should not be recommending you guys to do this, but like just use it from iOS, from your phone.
Wait, you can go to meta.ai and you can use it there. Like they released it there, I think. You can still choose 405B through meta.ai, I think, for a limited time.
How good it is. But yeah, just to quickly go back to the Mistral one, in case we covered it or not. That 128K context on Mistral chat, which is different than all the other chat providers, that is a real 128K. I just dropped in there 90,000 worth of context, like an entire repository with the documentation. I just pasted it in one go and told it to rewrite the whole complete thing while removing the duplicates and removing the document. And it did it. And it kept rewriting until it ran out of context window. And then I kept telling it to go, and it kept going. And none of the other ones do that. Even Claude has issues obeying that. Don't discount the Mistral model at all.
Nisten, before we get to Mistral, we'll talk about Mistral soon. I think in the context of bringing us back, the cloud providers that currently host 405B, which is Grok hosts 405B. You can talk for free at grok.com, I believe. Meta AI themselves, I haven't seen anyone support the 128 context window. I think because this model is so huge and expensive to run, I actually haven't seen anyone support the full context window. And not to mention that many of them run this in half precision in FP8. So Together runs this in FP8. I think Fireworks run this in FP8, and I'll talk about my evaluation later. Let's talk about a little bit about the evaluation. So we're talking about gut feels. Wolfram, you talked about gut feels. Let's talk about evaluations for just a bit. So I want to paste to the top of the space, and I'll add this to the show notes if you're listening to this on the podcast, a rundown of my own that I ran. I tried to collect all of the evaluations, not that Meta posted for us. I have a thread that I'm going to post that I just went and collected all the possible evals that I could. And I just pasted it to the top of the space. You guys can read this through this with me. Just because you guys know that one kind of the standard evals are not necessarily helpful to understand the full scope. Wait, I'm getting real-time checks from the folks in the audience, which I love. People are telling me that I'm wrong, and there's at least 2 providers that offer full precision. I'm getting that Octo AI is supporting full precision. I'm trying to see who told me this. Ben Ham told me that Octo supports full context window. Okay, full context window, not full precision. And Carlos said that Samba Nova supports the 405 billion parameter model in full precision. That's true. We've talked with Samba Nova. If you guys remember, maybe a month ago, we've talked to Rodrigo Lien, Samba Nova CEO, and they have uploaded 405B in full precision. However, Samba Nova is not a consumer company. You cannot use this very easily. Carlos, while that's true, and I'm hoping to get an API key and test this, it's not like it's open for folks. But yeah, that's true. Samba Nova AI is supporting 405B in full precision, and Octo is supposedly supporting 128K context. Now, back to some of the evals. Again, Meta released a bunch of evals. We know the evals don't tell the full story. That's why we have folks like Wolfram and we have folks like LDJ and Junyang. I want to hear from you as well because I want to hear what this means to open source, that this quality of model dropped. However, now I want to talk about some of the additional evaluations. They're not just open source ones like we saw, like GSM-8K. If you guys remember, I have like a very big interest in different evaluation leaderboards, and Scale has their own professional kind of held back evals called Seal. Held back means that they have their own eval suite that they don't expose to providers. And I think they even do some more stuff that the providers won't see those evals and then train on them in order to not leak and overfit them. And so Scale has a Seal evals, and right now, LLaMa 3.5 405B beats Claude 3 Opus on math. It's second place on math. And this is not math, the benchmark. This is math, like reasoning about math. And it's fourth on code. But this eval doesn't have DeepSeek, so I don't know if it's really good. Fourth. And it's number one in instruction following on the Scale Seal leaderboard, which is quite crazy. And you can follow with my thread. We're going down. Terry Yu from Big Code Bench. We've talked with Terry Yu before. Big Code Bench is the attempt from Big Code Project and Hugging Face together to replace human eval. And that conversation is great. You should definitely listen to this on ThursdAI. There was an update. And DeepSeek Coder is now the best open source. I guess it's via API only, but it's the best coding model. It's 3.5 sonnet level. LLaMa 3.5 405 billion parameter is the second one or third one or something like this. Yeah. So very good coding as well for this big model. Let's keep going and see what else eval-wise we have.
Just to correct, so Samba Nova is up. You can try it in FP16, but I think their output is limited to about 2,000 tokens.
Oh, you can actually try this on their website?
Yeah, you can try it on Samba Nova. I got 30 tokens per second, a full output. Some other things. Together API gets 60 TPS, but they're also running Flash Attention 3 and all of those optimizations. But that's in FP8, and they say it's in FP8.
Yeah.
So yeah, 30 TPS on Samba Nova, but with limited output. And the DeepSeek model, by the way, is open source. They open source the latest checkpoint, and that one beats Opus. And honestly, I think that is still, in terms of performance per active parameters and performance per speed, I would say that's probably still the best model. You have a model better than Opus that only needs 21 billion active parameters.
Well, are you sure that the DeepSeek Coder checkpoint from yesterday was open source as well? The DeepSeek Coder, not
yesterday
DeepSeek
or last?
Yesterday. Listen, things move fast.
Yesterday was brand new one. Oh, yeah. That's crazy. Then.
Yeah.
All right.
As you folks can hear, even co-hosts of ThursdAI are finding out things on ThursdAI. Yesterday, DeepSeek released something. We're gonna cover this. All right, moving forward in meta stuff. So we covered capability. We covered some evals. One last thing that I want to talk about evals, because this is not a very standard one. Mix eval. If you guys remember, we talked with the folks Jinji and some other folks from Mix eval. Junyang, you wanna can you unmute and see if we can hear you, Junyang, if you're with us?
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Do you want to introduce MixEval like super quick and what this is for the folks in the audience who haven't maybe heard this? Because I think you introduced me to Jinjin and some other folks, and you guys posted MixEval scores as well.
Yeah, sure. It is a leaderboard led by Jinjin, Xiangyue, and you may know them on Twitter. And it is actually an evaluation of multiple data sets that actually approximate the performance of Trapper Arena. So you just use the MixEval and you can guess how you perform in Trapper Arena based on my understanding.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you. And thank you for introducing the folks to us. So they came on the podcast and we talked about mixed eval. So that's also something you can hear on previous ThursdAI. We actually, in Weights and Biases, we ran, let me see if I can find this and add this for you as well. It's part of the thread there, but I'll add this. So Morgan from the Weights and Biases team actually ran the mixed eval code. Let me see if I can find this here. And you can see that this mixed eval approximates LLaMa's arena. So LLaMa's did not yet give us score for the LLaMa 3.1. For some reason, OpenAI, when they release a model, LLaMa's, ta-da, we've been testing this all this while, here's the scores. But Meta doesn't have this pool with LLaMa's for some reason, and we don't actually have a LLaMa's arena score for LLaMa 3.1 but we ran mixed eval for you. Yeah, we spent that money. So you can see that LLaMa 3.1 scores a very high 66.19 on mixed eval hard, which should correlate with arena hard, and that's number 2. If this correlates correctly, and based on the research that they did with mixed eval, it should correlate with 96%, I believe. It should land on something like number 1 or 2 on the mixed eval arena or the LLaMa's arena. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple other parts of the LLaMA 3 paper that I think are somewhat important.
Yes,
of
please.
The multimodality. They said Zuck said in an interview with Rowan, and also in the actual LLaMA paper, they detailed the multimodal architecture, which is like image and video dedicated like adapters and layers added to the model architecture, as well as audio in and audio out. And they said that they're currently still developing it, but they revealed some multimodal benchmarks for it, and it was actually coming pretty close to the multimodal benchmarks for Gemini and GPT4 vision. And Zuck said in the interview with Rowan that he expects that to come in the next few months, and they've had some unfortunate setbacks, but he thinks it's going to come soon.
Yeah, and some of these setbacks are like, I think, regulatory, I think, because he definitely talked about European constraints, regulatory constraints about multimodality in products, but also in just training as well. But not only that, I think, DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, they also posted how to actually do this, or like their outline of the schema of how to train multimodal. And the thing that I noticed there is that they have not only images into multimodality, they also have video. So they would support something like video with image batching. And on the output, they have speech, which is super cool. Which is super, super cool. Unfortunately, on the output, they don't have diffusion model, so it won't draw images for you, but it will definitely speak to you, which is something I'm waiting very hard for. I think that's enough evals. No, I think it's clear to us that this is like one hell of a model that beats GPT-4. Is it not clear? Anybody else not clear about this? Junior, I want to hear from you, because as an author of the previously one of the biggest and best open weights models, you guys just got beaten. I don't think you guys are sad about this. I think this maybe just lit a fire under your collective assets, hopefully. But I would love to hear from you as a team who like previously did incredible releases in the open source. What does this mean to have this level of foundational model in the open weights in the open source? Maybe what did you learn from their paper, if anything?
Yeah, it was really amazing to see such large model. Actually, last weekend I talked to the guys and they said they were busily working with LLaMA 3.1, and I was a bit afraid. Yeah, a really 405B. It's such a big model to open source. So it's true. It's really amazing, and it's a bit sad. They did not compare Quen 2 with LLaMA 3.1, so we just did some comparison. Yeah, we are still a little bit falling behind the 3.1, especially for the instruct model. I think this one is a great success for the post-training because for the base language model, you can see that LLaMA 3.1 is actually very similar to the LLaMA 3, but for the post-training, LLaMA 3.1 and 70B, it's improving quite a lot in the benchmark data sets. Yeah, so I think the biggest lessons for us to learn is that you can train a very large model for a teacher model. It is just like an expert, and you can use it for the distillation to improve your smaller models. So maybe we can later see something like 70B model, which is really GPT-4 level, and it will become something true, and that will be something very effective but also very efficient. But another comment is that for the 405B Personally, I think it can be even better. So I think they are still working on some better stuff. Maybe LLaMa 4. Yeah.
Yeah, LLaMa 4, I think Rowan Cheng, when he talked with Zach, he asked about LLaMa 4, and Zach is, let's give people like a week to get excited by 3.1 before we like speak about 4 excitement. Let's give people like a week, and which is also my kind of feeling about this as well. I want to, LDJ, before I get to you, I want to talk about what Jun Yang just mentioned. So we were just like talking about the 405, the bigger one, the one that beats GPT-4, etc. The other 2 models, like Junior just said, they were distilled from the teacher model, and the improvements are crazy for the past. What they kept training them, they also learned from the teacher model, and they outlined this in the paper, I believe. And also Zach talked about this distillation. The differences between April and now for LLaMa 70B, for MMLU, it's a 6-point difference. So LLaMa 3 70B in April was 80.9, and now it's 86. For if eval 82 in April, 87 right now for 70B. It's actually reduced by 1 point on human eval, which is very interesting. But let's see what other scores get jumped like super quick. GPQA, which is Google Proof QA, we talked about GPQA a while, jumped by 7 points from 39 to 46, which is quite impressive. And obviously tool use got improved significantly, because these are the skills that this model can learn from the bigger model. For BFCL, they jumped only by a point, actually, but they jumped on the Gorilla benchmark by, from 14 to 29. So yeah, this is for the LLaMa 70B, and this definitely shows that the 70B is now like a bigger model. And I wanted to ask folks here on stage, this is as far as I heard from like multiple folks as well, that 405B may not be like the best model for production, actually. It may be like the best model for like distillation, for dataset creation, for synthetic datasets, for maybe LLM as a judge, but may not be the best for production, because like you have to lift all those, you have to like to have enough VRAM for all of this. However, like 70B seems to be like an incredible model for production. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Nistan maybe, and then LDJ.
That was not my experience with summaries. I know 70B gets pretty high on the benchmarks, and they might be able to do some speculative stuff, optimizations with it, but it's way better. Dude, I just asked it to build like a magnetic mass launcher on Mars that launches on top of like Mount Olympus and stuff. And it's like the most like stoner question. You're just like, oh, we're going to shoot a maglev train off the top of the mountain on Mars. And like, how much like do we need? How long does it did it all. Like it looked through the table of air densities, it compared it with Earth, it calculated the energy. Like it just did it, dude. This thing just freaking did it. And it's a very hard question for other models. They all hallucinate, they all mess up. This thing just freaking did it. The most insane things you can ask, like a galactic project of stuff, it'll just calculate it. Yeah, this is the 70B can't. It's not going to get even close.
It's not there. I see.
Yeah.
LDJ, what's your take on the bigger model for production use versus smaller models, compared to like how good the smaller models also got?
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be different use cases of, depending on the use case, the smaller model will probably be like good enough. And then you might as well just use that because it's going to be cheaper no matter what provider you use pretty much. However, the 405B is still only, I think it's available now for $3 and out per million tokens. So that's cheaper than GPT4o. And I think in some decent amount of use cases, it might be equal or better than GPT4o as well. So that'd be a no-brainer to use 405B through some cloud providers in that situation. And then also the fact you have, I guess, more to an extent uncensoredness and things like that with 405B, especially if you fine tune it. But there's also this part of the paper where they mentioned execution feedback. Here, I have this short quote in front of me that I'll read it. We introduce execution feedback as a source of truth, enabling the model to learn from its mistakes and stay on track. And so they mentioned a few other details in the paper about how they pretty much had a system during the post-training where they had the model learn to refuse answers to questions that it didn't actually have the knowledge to or wasn't trained on. And so that should actually maybe help the model say things like, hey, I actually don't know, or I'm not sure I would have the right answer to that question, instead of just hallucinating like some other models.
Yeah, execution feedback. I'm getting a little bit of feedback myself on my mic. Hopefully you guys can hear this. Okay, so this is the 70B parameter model. Let's cover the smaller one because I think also the LLaMa 3.5 8 billion parameter got incredible updates as well, from 65 mmLU to 73, like a huge jump on if eval. So instruction following got to 80 score as well. Human eval shot up to 72, from 60 to 72. That's like the results of the distillation that Junyan talked about, from 60.4 to 72.6. So like almost an 8% jump in human eval and MVP plus as well. The reasoning and tool use as well jumped from 60 to 76, like a huge jump in like this very small model. And this one we can run on our Macs, right? Like, this is like most of us, if we have like a Mac from like M1, M2, or 3, we can run this. Some of us even in like full precision, in fairly quick speed, we can run this model on our Macs. 8 billion parameter is already getting fine-tuned from multiple people. So shout out to Kyle Corbett from OpenPipe, which is a service that doesn't pay me, but I'll shout them out anyway. That they do fine-tuning. He quickly added 8 billion parameter model to their service and saw that it could potentially beat 4o mini when prompted. So like a fine-tuned 8 billion parameter can beat like a prompted GPT4o mini, which is great, because many people would prefer to run this model. And this is a model that you can run. This fine-tune, by the way, is not the type of fine-tunes that we talked about, right? Like when Junyang and the Quen team released the Quen-based model, and somebody like LDJ or some news folks fine-tuned that to be a generic model, that's different. What we're talking about here is fine-tuning for specific purpose tasks. For a category, if you're a business and you want to fine-tune this for your stuff. So that fine-tune, they show that the 8 billion parameter model can outperform on those tasks just a prompted model, which brings back the whole thing about fine-tuning for business purposes, which is great. I think it's super, super great. This small model is very malleable. It's super lightweight to run. It's super cheap to run as well. You don't have to run this yourself. You can go to TogetherAI or Fireworks or whatever. All these services will also let you to fine-tune and upload this model. Fine-tunable, you can run it. But you can absolutely run this yourself. This is the model that you can like fine-tune for your own tasks. And if you require air gapping, if you are in the medical profession, whatever, you can definitely use these small models for incredible stuff like this. But as Nissan said, 405B is still incredible for summarization. Thoughts on the smaller model? Wolfram, I know you have some thoughts about the smaller ones that we can run for fully offline, for completely free, and for our purposes.
Oh yeah, definitely. So that is the one I was comparing with the bigger 12B model from Mistral, the Mistral Nemo version, which already surprised me how good it was.
Yep.
And the Gamma 2 from Google 27B. So it did stuff better than those. So I think, yeah, it would probably be my favorite now that it is multilingual as well. And yeah, you can run it locally. You can run it unquantized, of course, if you have enough VRAM. It really is a good one. And one thing is important when you run in production, you want to handle a lot of users. You need a fast model. And running 405B in production for a lot of users is probably out of scope. So most people will have to use a cloud service. But the 8B, you can easily put it on every system where you have a lot of users and handle all of them. So it's probably the most useful model right now for a lot of people, a lot of use cases.
Yep.
And it's great. It's really amazing how good it is now.
It's good now, and just wait until the fine-tuning community grabs their hands on this small model, because this is the one they're going to start like fine-tuning like super quick, because it's like very easy as well. And the mergers, once they get, I can't wait for Maxime Le Bon to start merging this with like crazy like other stuff like Beagle and everything. LDJ, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just wanted to give people information if anyone's curious about how fast Grok is able to run these new models. The 8B is running at about 1,000 tokens per second. The 70B is running at about 250 tokens per second. And they have the 405B running around 100 tokens per second.
That's insane. I wanted to shout out the video that the CEO of Grok posted. I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm going to add this just now super quick. He posted a video where he just talks full real time. Let me see if I can like super quickly find this. It's not the new, this one, Jonathan Ross. This is the video, if you guys want to see this, but if not, I can just describe what's going on here. Jonathan Ross talks to this model at Grok speed, and this model prints out columns, and it just generates, so like how I talked about different UI generating things before, like OpenUI from Symbiosis co-founder Chris. This is not that. This is just like text, but he asks for a table, and then he asks for Grok to like move columns with the Grok speed, and the columns just appear. Like this model streams token, they print like text, but he asked for like tabular data, and you could just see like the columns just like honestly appear, because like, I think he uses 70B or maybe 8B. Because of this like incredible like 1,000 token speed, things just appear, and he talks to it because of the voice interface. Just, I don't know, this whole experience just blew me away, and this is something to definitely look forward to. That's not something that we're going to be able to use with 405 billion parameter at this point. Folks, I think an exact hour into this, it's now 10:30 a.m. where I am. We have covered most of what I wanted to cover for Meta Llama 3.1, 405 billion parameter, 70 billion parameter, and 8 billion parameter. And I think we're going to open the stage for like different things we didn't cover yet. LDJ, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we would just want to close out real quick with, I have a quote in front of me of Zuck just teasing Llama 4.
Oh, really? Yeah, let's
go
ahead, please.
Yeah, he said, quote, "I think it might be a little early to talk about Llama 4, but we've got the compute cluster set up. We've got a bunch of the data set up. We have a sense of what the architecture is going to be, and have a bunch of research experiments to max that out. And I do think Llama 4 is going to be another big leap on top of Llama 3, end quote."
Yeah, that big leap is going to be very interesting. I can imagine by then where we're going to be, where are we going to be? Because by then we're probably going to see Opus. And it needs to be said that Anthropic cooked with Sonnet 3.5, really cooked with it. Because since then we saw the release of the ChatGPT 4.0 mini, and Opus is still, in every benchmark, Opus beats all of the models. Opus right now is like the king of LLMs that we can access. Probably OpenAI has like a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes they're not releasing. Opus right now is like the best LLM that we can use, unless you believe LMC Serena, in which GPT4o is the best model, and GPT4o mini is also the best model. I don't know if you guys saw this update from 2 days ago or yesterday, and this got everybody from our bubble or our area of X just really raising eyebrows at LMCs and like how weird this became, because that's not our experience. None of us experience the GPT4o mini, which is quite incredible and super fast and cheap. All of this, yes. But it does not seem like it beats Claude 3.5 at anything, especially like when you actually talk to these models. And this raises eyebrows at LMC Serena's ability to estimate models. Wolfram, go ahead, please.
Just a quick correction first. You said Opus. I think you meant Sonnet, right?
I meant, yeah,
Sonnet.
3.5 Sonnet. Opus is not here yet. And when Opus drops, that's going to be like incredible. Sorry, I got myself confused. 3.5 Sonnet, the middle child, the incredible, thank you.
And Sonnet is still my favorite model, definitely. But back to the LMC Serena and the stuff. So I have seen that phenomenon a lot of times with smaller models where people say, oh, this 8B, it's like a 70B. So that was last year even. Because the models, they write so well that the writing, how can I say it? If they write so well, you think they are smarter than they actually are. Like when somebody is very eloquent, they can appear to be smarter, and you really have to test their intelligence to find out. There's a discrepancy there. And I think people, especially if it's a one-shot, you ask a question, you get a bunch of text and it sounds good. So you say, yes, that's a great model. So that is a different kind what they are testing. And when you are optimizing for that, like they did with the mini model, then you get great scores in that part. It's not gaming the system, it's optimizing for the system. And you all know the saying, when you have a benchmark that becomes a target, it ceases to be a benchmark. So I think that's just what we are seeing here.
Absolutely. And definitely that's not what we're seeing on the other benchmarks across the board for instruction following, for coding, for math. But this is what we're seeing for like just human kind of comparison between two models, which is what LMC Serena provides for us in the overall category. So very important, if you are to trust LMC Serena, there are different categories. There's LMC Serena Hard, there's coding, there's like different areas. Dive into those and see that like their Sonnet 3.5 actually beats 4.0 and definitely 4.0 mini. But on the overall, I think, Wolfram, you hit the nail right on the head, where like people maybe prefer just the style of the answer, and which is something that OpenAI obviously has a lot of ability to train, because they're still probably the leading provider in just how many people are using them. And probably the RLHF, they're the kings of RLHF. I think last comments about 3.1, I think we're going to keep talking about this as new things come out, as new fine-tunes come out. I want to hear maybe something else from Junyang, anything that we haven't covered yet that excites you about this week, that excites you about looking forward, about using these models. Oh, license. Let's talk about license. One thing I skipped completely. I updated this in the beginning. Meta updated their license to allow for synthetic data creation and generation and also distillation. I think that's very important. That's like a huge thing for folks like News Research and Technium and other fine-tuners as well. They themselves used a lot of synthetic generated data to train these models, and now they also open this up for everybody else for dataset creation as well. I think that's huge. LDJ is somebody who creates a bunch of datasets. Junyang is somebody who trains open weights models and probably uses a bunch of open datasets as well. You guys give me some comments around this area of how much this could affect a model of this size, because OpenAI still, even though everybody does this, OpenAI doesn't allow, definitely not distillation, but OpenAI doesn't allow training on its outputs, I believe, even though everybody does this.
Yeah, I think this is actually pretty important because even though, like you said, a lot of people still train on OpenAI outputs anyways, there's a lot of legal departments and a lot of small, medium, and large companies that they restrict the people building and fine-tuning AI models within that company from actually being able to build the best models that they can because of these restrictions. And it ends up, I think, this might be probably the best model that they could actually use, that the legal departments would actually give the okay on to generate synthetic data to train models on. And I think that's going to improve a lot of the different types of maybe custom models implemented into products in different companies that we might see, and different ways that AI is actually implemented into different use cases across different companies.
Yep. Junyang, any thoughts on how much this will unlock for the open source community? This license change?
Yeah, I think it explains why they open source such a large model, because it is not easy for people to fine tune and deploy it with such large model. You need a lot of devices, but for such large model, you can help people to really improve their fine tuning. I think in the community, there are a lot of people who suffer from high quality fine tuning because they do not have high quality data for their domain and for their use cases. But with LLaMa 4.5, you can just fine tune it and be a very good teacher and then generate synthetic data to train your 70B model so that you can deploy it with your 70B model pretty well. So I think this is the greatest meaning for opening such a large model. One of the explanation. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I think license is the last thing that we have left to cover, and multimodality we've covered. They've trained them, they didn't release them, but they have the path, and maybe the open source community will bid them to it. Maybe we'll see like a lava on top of LLaMa 70B, probably an easy update. Probably folks are cooking this right now, especially because they already posted some of the ways that they would do this. Nistin, any parting thoughts on this before we move on and talk about Mistral?
No.
Awesome. Okay. Amazing. Great. Easy. All right. I think we're moving forward. Before we move forward, though, I want to reset the space a little bit. There's a bunch of you here, and probably some of you who stepped in the middle of the space. So you're on ThursdAI. We're here for more than a year and a half, I think, every Thursday. Since GPT-4 was released March 14, 2023, every Thursday, we took one break 2 weeks ago and a week ago for the first time because I was on vacation. But since then, every Thursday and going forward, probably every Thursday as well. And we cover everything in AI. And so I'm here with a bunch of friends of mine, experts in different fields. Junyang Lin from Quen, LDJ, creator of multiple datasets and machine learning expert himself, Wolf from Alpha, who, if you've ever visited local Llama Reddits, you may know him. He's like one of the best estimator of vibes of models and comparisons, definitely. And Nistin, frequent co-host of mine, Raccoon, should I say? Yeah, Raccoon, Skunkworks AI, and Raccoon.ai person, and just like a crazy hacker that can run pretty much every model, no matter the size, on CPUs. I have a bunch of other friends here in the audience. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases, who is basically the reason why ThursdAI still exists and runs. And speaking of, now that we have a little bit of a reset, weights and biases, I also have a corner here that talks about this week's buzz. What happens with weights and biases every week. And in this week, obviously, the stuff that we have are related to Meta LLaMa 3.1. And so the product currently that we have, the main product that we have with weights and biases is called Weights and Biases Weave, which is our evaluation and tracing framework for LLMs. And I wanted to use this in order to test some stuff with Meta LLaMa 3.1. And the stuff I wanted to test is around the different service providers for LLM. For example, as LLaMa 3.1 was released, Together AI, Grok, Deep Infra, Fireworks, and a bunch of others got access about 6 days before, and they started putting this on their framework, on their infrastructure, inference infrastructure, and all of them provided this in a little bit of a different way, because all of them some run on VLLM, some run on Flash Attention 3, like Nistan mentioned, for Together, because the creator of Flash Attention works there. A shout out to ThursdAI and his amazing contribution to the world. And Grok runs them on their own specific hardware, which actually helped them debug a little bit with the bug that I posted. So shout out to Grok as well. And so I just wanted to test the differences. So I am posting a link on the top of the space for something like a test that I did, like an eval that I did. This evaluation is not like a full evaluation that we've talked about where it just runs things and tests if the model answered them, because I'm not evaluating like one model against the other model. I'm literally evaluating the same model from different providers and just testing whether or not different hardware causes it to run differently, which is a very interesting like thought experiment. And the visualization comes with the help of Weights and Biases Weave. And so I can add this link as well. And if you guys want to check this out, please look at this Weave link. It will give you like a nice comparison dashboard. It's a very, very nice like visualization. And we're really very, very happy with this like new feature where you can compare between evaluations. So this is what's new with Weights and Biases Weave this week. If you want to give Weave a try, it's super simple. 1b.me/Weave. It took me less than, 4 hours to run this whole thing, while also trying to figure out how to wrangle Open Router. So the way I was able to achieve this is via Open Router. So shout out to Alex Atala with Open Router. I released our conversation with him 2 weeks ago. The conversation took place in April. So if you're interested in Open Router and how it works and why it has place, please listen to that conversation from 2 weeks ago at ThursdAI.news. Now, moving on to Mistral Large V2. So a day after Meta released LLaMa 3.1, they gave us a day. Mistral gave us a day to celebrate like biggest state-of-the-art news when they announced their new Mistral Large V2. It's a 123 billion parameter dense model. Mistral likes to release a mixture of experts. So obviously Mistral and Bigstral are different mixture of expert model that they've released previously. And now they released a big dense model, one like huge 123 billion parameter model. This comes after a few weeks ago, they released a few other Mistral models. So they've been on a roll lately. They released CodeStral and they released MathStral, which is specific for math. It looks like this is the model that is now like taking all of that into one. So they also started deprecating a bunch of models on their API. This is a non-commercial license model. It comes with, I believe, also 128,000 tokens. Nistan, correct? I think you mentioned this before. Nistan, if you're still with us.
Yes.
128,000 tokens as well, which is great. It, like, again, research license only, but a large context window. Let's see what's interesting there. MMLU of 84, so not quite beating like LLaMa 3.1, but also it's like way smaller. On multilinguality, I think it's starting to compete on multilinguality. Again, something that Mistral is very good at, on different like languages like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Russian, and Portuguese. It has a very high empty bench score of 8.6 and arena hard of 73. What else can we see here in this model? So they used a bunch of their kind of CodeStral experience to actually make it very proficient in coding. So this model was trained on 80 plus coding languages in Python, Java, and JavaScript. And in this release, they actually highlighted that this model beats LLaMa 3.1 405 on different coding languages, actually, which is pretty cool. Like a smaller model. Definitely beats 70 billion parameter. This model is available via API, and I do believe they released it in Hugging Face as well. Any thoughts on this? Nistan, you had thoughts, but I would love for you to repeat this for this section as well, just for recording sakes.
Yes, I used it extensively yesterday and today. And while it doesn't give as nice of an output, it's still a very Mistral-like output. It does follow the instructions extremely well. For stuff like very hard questions, I could still see better results from Sonnet and the others. However, the one thing that this model does that the others don't is that it will give you out close to more than 32K or 64K output. What I did was like I just dumped in a small code base. I gave it a list of 30 things to do, and I said, create a small and hard example for each of these items on the list. And it kept going until its context was full. Another thing is I dumped in up to 90-something thousand tokens of context and said to summarize it and remove comments and remove duplicates. And it did it. It did it exactly. And Sonnet would not do that. I used projects. I used it with Opus. Opus would get close. None of the other models really do something like that reliably, where you can just dump in a whole code base, give it a whole bunch of instructions, and expect complete output without skipping anything. No rest of comments here, no shortening it. It's when they say 128K, this feels like a real 128K.
That's very interesting. And I wonder what that, like how and why, because other providers also claim 128K. Claude even claims 200,000, I believe. And if I'm not mistaken, Gemini has 1 million. Okay, moving on to another thing that they claim have, and I don't really understand what is the metric. They say the Mistral Large 2 is equipped with enhanced function calling and retrieval skills and has undergone training to proficiently execute both parallel and sequential function calls, which is super cool. I actually haven't seen that clarification from Meta. I think Meta just does a straight up one function call. I haven't seen parallel function calls. Maybe I'm wrong. We didn't have enough time to check it out with LLaMa. Maybe it does do parallel. But Mistral claims state-of-the-art on function calling, even against GPT4o and others, and they posted like a graph. This graph has some accuracy, and Mistral Large 2 is beating GPT4o and Opus and Sonnet and Large, like the previous Large, but this graph doesn't say where it comes from. I don't know if you guys have seen this, where it comes from. I haven't, and I asked, and I didn't see the answer. Nistan, do you know what they're testing here? Is this the Berkeley function calling or what?
What this looks like to me is that they're comparing it if they ask it to generate like 30 functions or 10 functions. And this is why I think the model's strength is of experience. If you ask it for 20 things, it will do all those 20 things at the same intensity. Whereas even with Sonnet 3.5 and stuff, like they will do maybe one big function really well, and then the rest they'll start shortening outputs. So this is what I suspect they mean by it.
It's very interesting that there's no reference to this thing, and honestly there's also no comparison to LLaMa 3.1 in the function calling area. Maybe they just didn't have time to run this, or maybe they didn't know like how to actually execute on function calling with 405 billion parameter LLaMa. Let's see. So the weights are available on Hugging Face, but again, non-commercially licensed, and you can access this to the cloud services via Le Platform. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. And you can play with this via Le Chat. But also, they are now deprecating other models that they have been serving via this Le Platform. As we get this large V2, I think the only models that are remaining is Mistral Nemo, which they trained together with NVIDIA. I think in the updates, I missed that one. So if you're following your news explicitly to ThursdAI, which you shouldn't. I'll be very interested to see people who follow only exclusively on ThursdAI. We skipped this one, but Mistral also trained a model called Nemo together with NVIDIA. And so now the only two models that you can get are two general purpose models, Mistral Nemo and Mistral Large V2, and two specialist models, CodeStral for coding specifically, and Embed, which they have an embedding model. And they will deprecate all Apache version models like Mistral 7B 7B, Mistral 8x7B, and Bigstral 8x22, and Codestral Mamba, which they just released like 2 weeks ago. So they're already deprecating this. That's very interesting. In their API, you can still download these models. You can still run these models if you want to. They will remain available for deployment, so you can run them yourself. So very interesting changes in Mistral and interesting changes in Apache open sourcing as well. So we're going to have to wait and see when Mistral will give us an open source model. But still, this 123 billion parameter model is also almost GPT-4 level. In the same week, a day after Meta gave us a almost like beating GPT-4 model, we got another one that comes very close on multiple parameters. Come very close. Just to read you some like human eval, it comes very close, but I think it beats it. I think it gets to GPT-4 maybe like 2% difference on human eval or human eval plus as well. Like it's in the 85 versus 90. MVP plus also gets very close to it. It's quite crazy that we got two models, GPT4o level intelligence in the open weights in the same week. I don't know. Anyone wants to share my excitement here about Mistral? Feel free. Mistral Large, LDJ. Anything on this? Have you had the chance to try this? So Wolfram, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And if we're talking about Mistral Large 2, right?
Yes.
The one that came out days ago.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one, I think in terms of the coding scores, it seemed to me
man.
like...
Not 2 days ago. Yesterday. We're just like, we're moving so fast.
Yesterday. Yeah. It seemed to me in the coding scores that I saw with the benchmarks they posted, in human eval, it was like beating 405B, but in most of the more reliable coding benchmarks that I feel like most people usually look towards, 405B seemed to still be beating it significantly. However, it's still a really powerful model. It seems really good for its size and really good in between of the LLaMa 3.170B and LLaMa 3.145B. And just in terms of overall reasoning and math abilities, I think it could be a really good model for people to make fine tunes of and see what else they could leverage with those reasoning abilities.
Yeah. And also they specifically talk about instruction following and alignment for this model, where they definitely claim second place over 4.0. And for some reason in their kind of benchmarks, the 4.0 like beats, or I guess is the same level as Sonnet, and they're coming like third or second on Wild Bench and Arena Heart for instruction following as well. Wolfram, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mistral has always been very interesting to me. So it's a European company, and they are showing that not everything is US based. So that will be probably very important when you later want to talk about the multimodality and where it will not be released. So that is why Mistral is also a very important player. And yeah, I guess they had the model and waited until LLaMa 3.0 came out. Maybe that was why they released it so quickly after it. But yeah, because it's non-commercial only or research only, it has limited capabilities, but it's okay. After all, Mistral has to make money with the models, what Meta does not have to do. So yeah, I appreciate it that they released it at all. That is already a great thing of them, and I respect the company a lot.
100%. They need to make money, and they also need to show that maybe Meta released something, but that something is hard to run on servers. And like 123 billion parameters. I think they mentioned that this fits on like a huge, like one big H100 or something like this. I saw somewhere that they mentioned that like it should fit on one device. I think that's the point of the scale, right, Nista? I think they mentioned something like this.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like this might be the model I end up passing the most tokens through day to day, just because of how I work. Like I just dump in the whole code base and just tell it to try stuff. And this does that the most reliably. So I was surprised. Like at first I was like, oh, okay, Mistral has another model. But then I started just dumping stuff in. Like, oh no, this is good. And consider that you can run it on your own as well. And yeah, the quants should be pretty good. I think this is a model you should run in 4-bit. It just keep spamming it with stuff until something works. That's how I would use it. But yeah, it might actually be the one I use the most, surprisingly.
Yeah. Shout out to Mistral, absolutely. And they need to show that if you don't want to run Meta stuff, you want to celebrate Meta's commitment to open source, their commitment in paper releases and help to the community, but you want to run models yourself. This one runs. I found the quote. They said, I found and lost it again. 1 second. Where is this? Where is this in performance? I scroll
By the
through.
way, it's free. It's chat.mistral.ai. Just use it there for free.
Yeah, Mistral Large 2 is designed for single node inference with long context applications in mind. Its size of 123 billion parameters allows it to run at large throughput on a single node. I think this is like a definite shout out towards the 4 or 5 billion parameter that they compared it to a day after. I think we've covered Mistral 2 enough, and I think the next thing that we're going to cover is DeepSeek. So let's move on to DeepSeek. Although I haven't seen the DeepSeek released an actual kind of checkpoint yet. So let's maybe cover DeepSeek super quick. DeepSeek is hard to cover, folks. DeepSeek is a company that doesn't really talk a lot or announce a lot of stuff. And they have basically two models. They have DeepSeek Chat and DeepSeek Coder. For the longest time, DeepSeek Coder was like the best model you can download for code. These things got a little murky lately because we just got like a barrage of different models, everyone competing for the MMLU and the human eval, like all of these scores. And so it's really hard to know which models are now in the open source are the best one. And DeepSeek also offers an API, which is ridiculously cheap. I think the DeepSeek API, I think, is the one thing that goes for DeepSeek API is that it's ridiculously cheap, significantly cheaper than anything that you'd be able to host a LLaMa 405B yourself, because you're going to have to pay for all those GPUs yourself, significantly cheaper than probably even GPT4o mini, maybe around the area of mini. Actually, you should probably look it up, DeepSeek API prices.
Yeah, it's 21 billion active. You can host it like neck and neck with the cost of Mini.
Yeah,
Mini is like, be able to host for 20 cents an hour.
Yeah, Mini is 14 cents or something, and then DeepSeek is also 14 cents per million tokens. Yeah, I think they're matching Mini, I think, for price, but I think they beat Mini on coding ability, if I'm not mistaken. And so the reason why DeepSeek is hard to cover is because they keep updating this almost on a weekly basis, if I'm not mistaken. I think somebody in the comment just said that, I think Lincoln said, they updated the model yesterday, and so let's read the changelog a little bit. Let me actually add, thank you, Lincoln, for this addition. I'm going to add this to the top of the space. Here's the changelog. Updated API chat completions. They added JSON mode. They added function calling. They added fill in the middle completion in beta, and generation of 8K max tokens. So you can like now generate up to 8,000 tokens like on the output. And they now have a new completions API for fill in the middle completions. And for more documentations, please see documentation of something like this. This is, yeah, I think they released it like a week after they released like a different other version, and we barely had a day. Like this was released like earlier on today, and I think quick and dirty tests from Big Code Bench, I think, placed this DeepSeek Coder at number 1 with Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is quite incredible.
I just tested. I literally just, if you scroll one back, I just tested it right now. I dumped in a question on Sonnet 3.5 and this new DeepSeek from their site, and they both got the exact same answer, 14.45. And I also did all the calculations, Mistral Large, GPT4o, LLaMa 405B below that, and the older DeepSeek, which I put a GGF for, which is pretty popular. They all like, Mistral Large was off by 10 points. The other ones were all like not that accurate. This and Sonnet 3.5 just got the exact same answer. And it's a super complicated question, like multi-step and air pressures and all this stuff. They got it both perfectly.
Yeah.
The only two models that got it all perfectly.
And we've talked about DeepSeek before. Like the team is super cracked. The team is, they're doing some stuff. I see Yam Pelican in the audience. For some reason, Yam decided on the most celebratory ThursdAI of the last 2 years not to join us, but okay. We talked about DeepSeek being like an extremely cracked team doing like some significant work on their like chat models as well, because DeepSeek chat is also like a great model. But Coder looks now, based on the two evals that I saw super quick, I have one, the big code bench evaluation for code. DeepSeek Coder V2 is now 3.5 Sonnet level. And the code editing leaderboard from Aider chat, Aider is putting DeepSeek Coder at like second place after 3.5 Sonnet, like very close, like at 97% correct format versus 1999 for Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And this is for code editing specifically, not for just autocompletion or creation, which is a different task a little bit. And the fill in the middle thing that they posted is very interesting as well. But again, we didn't have time to test this out because this came out today. Nistan, last thing about DeepSeek or other folks as well. Junyang, are you familiar with DeepSeek as well? Please feel free to chime in also.
Yeah, they have been very great at building the code-specific model, just like DeepSeek Coder, and DeepSeek Coder V2 should be the state-of-the-art, the code-specific model, and they have done very hard tasks really well. So I actually expect something better in coding agent to use the state-of-the-art open source model to build something better.
In OpenDevin, you mean the project that you guys are running?
Yeah. OpenDevin should use different models. I think they can try with DeepSeek Coder V2. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. If you want to give us an update on that this week or next week, feel free to. I would love to hear how that's going, because I'm excited to see how these huge jumps in coding abilities affect downstream tasks or frameworks. Devin, maybe CrewAI, maybe we'll bring Joao from CrewAI again and see how these updated intelligences affect frameworks as well. Speaking of frameworks, I want to say hi to a friend of mine and a friend of the pod, Matt Schumer, who does a bunch of them and releases a bunch of them and goes very viral with some of them. Matt, welcome to the stage, man. How are you? How's this week full of Christmas presents from all of the AI labs for you?
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear.
All right, awesome. Yeah, this week's been fun. I've mostly been focused on the LLaMa models. I find that if I try to handle too many of them at once, I don't do anything really well. Just from our experience, the LLaMa model were a place to focus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been doing. I've been fine-tuning 70B, which has been really interesting. The first thing I noticed, I don't know if Nistan, you're here, I'm sure you've probably seen the same thing if you are, is that the loss is just way lower from the start on 70B versus LLaMa 370B. Basically, short way of saying, and it's not a perfect metric, but it learns much faster. So it's pretty crazy to see what you can do with it. Whereas, for example, with LLaMa 3, I might have needed a 300,000 example data to teach it something really tricky. I'm actually doing the same sort of thing with 10, 20,000 examples now on 3.1, which is unbelievable. Plus, it allows you to just use just the highest quality examples. So it leads to a far better model anyway, less cost. So it's been a fun week. It's not over yet. Still a lot to do.
It just started. Have you taken a look at the smaller one, the 8 billion parameter one?
Yeah, I have.
Small.
It's really good. It is too small for my purposes. I think it's getting close to that threshold, but at least for the HyperAI platform, we want to give the best experience possible. And it's the cost performance trade-off for AP versus 70B, it's not so huge of a cost increase, but the performance you get for the user is far better, even if the benchmarks don't show it. Right. It's the little things that make all the difference. Obviously, the 70B to the 405B is just, it's nearly impossible to hostify to that without breaking the bank. So we're holding off on that for now. But yeah, the AP is a little bit small for our needs.
And just to clarify, when you say your needs, you're not talking about the plethora of side projects like the prompt engineer or cloud researcher, all of the bunch of stuff that you release and often many people use. You're talking about the actual product that you run, HyperAI, correct?
That is correct. Yes. So I'm talking about sort of two things. One is the main HyperAI writing platform, been around for a few years, and then also the newer agent style technology that we released, like the agent that can operate your computer for you, just complete tasks. That being said, I actually just got off a call with one of our inference partners, and we actually are collaborating to do a new notebook, slightly similar to some of the ones that were released recently, using LLaMa to optimize deployment. So you can imagine having 405B level quality or close to it, not exactly, but close to it with an 8B for production for more specific use cases. So that will be coming soon. So that, when I say I'm doing it mostly for the platform, that is true, but there will be some fun open source nuggets that we'll put out pretty soon.
All right. So folks, stay tuned for that. Thank you, Matt. And last thing, I don't know if you were here. Last thing I wanted to hear from you, maybe to ask, I asked some of this question. What about the 405 billion parameter? What's your take on putting this on production, using this on production? I have the sense, and I heard this from other folks, that it's too big for production. It's great for synthetic data creation, maybe LLM as a judge. What's your sense of this model as a production model?
It's a fucking monster. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's huge. Actually, one of the tasks I'm thinking about today is there's a specific use case that I want to have more high quality data for to train 70B on. And prompting, it's a very difficult task, and prompting 405B gets to be kind of part of the way there, but not enough. We have to fine tune for it, but fine tuning that on the 8H100 is not going to happen. You can cut out layers, but it's just a very difficult thing. So that's on the fine tuning side, right? You need a lot of GPUs to teach everything, and you can't prompt it to learn. And then on the inference side, it's just as hard, right? You can do an FP8, right? Or an M8 or whatever. Yeah, you can do that and host it on 8 GPUs, but you're not going to do better than that, at least currently, from what I'm hearing, from what I'm trying.
Yep.
So it is very difficult, but seeing like Fireworks get their pricing down to, I think it's like $3 per million tokens and possibly even lower now.
Yeah.
It's encouraging that, at least for the things you can prompt it for to generate synthetic data, again, it's actually a very feasible system, and you can get a lot of data for very cheap, and the license allows you to do that. So it's a fantastic thing that the community has thus far. So obviously it's not perfect in every way, nothing is, but it's a fantastic addition to sort of everything that we have access to.
Yeah, that's my sense as well. And that seems to be, after a day and a half that we had to play with these models and like wrap our heads around this, which probably, next week will still be, actually don't know, but next week or maybe even later today, we'll get some news that will make us forget about this whole thing. Hopefully not. Releases such as this size hopefully will give us at least a week of updates to talk about. But this is the sense that like this model is like incredible gift to the community. It's also like way too big for production purposes, but for stuff like synthetic generation, for distillation, for example, like for offline tasks and different other things, it's amazing. I would be very impressed if anybody from the fine-tuning community will release like a fine-tune. Remains to be seen. We've seen crazier things happen. Yeah, go ahead.
I am curious though. I wonder if anybody can go ahead and, like you've seen what the people have done with the older LLaMa 70Bs and merge them into themselves to build LLaMa 120Bs. I am curious. It's already too big to serve, so why not try? Who makes the first LLaMa 700B or LLaMa 800? I'm very curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, and then nobody can run this on any hardware beside maybe some folks.
It's coming. There's like a 419B, which unfortunately wouldn't add up to one more B from that, but it would be C, so it could.
Dang.
I think that's mostly what we want to cover today, folks. An hour and a half into this. I think because we don't have a straight up interview, this is most of the important news from this week. I will just mention super briefly two things, and I'll add this to the show notes as well. I would just want to shout out, because I think it's very important, the folks from, let me just find this. I think Grok and Daily and Cartesia, we've talked with the folks from Cartesia, if you remember, they have this super quick API for chatting. They all collaborated, or I guess like they all learned together, and they came up with a new, let me go find this super quick, a new standard, open standard for voice and video, real-time voice and video. And yeah, I'm going to post this here. Yeah, there we go. They collaborated with Grok, and shout out to the folks at Real-Time Daily, trydaily.com. I've played around with their demo. Actually, let me see if I can. You guys want to, let me try and see if I can do the demo. And super quick. And meanwhile, I'm getting a ping from my friend Junaid, and he's right, absolutely. As you guys know, those of you who are listening from the Denver/Boulder area, Junaid has been on this podcast for a long time, a listener and also a participant, that we run the AI Tinkerers in Denver/Boulder. There's a bunch of AI Tinkerers. If you want to do what we're doing here, but with people in front of you, AI Tinkerers is like a great place. There's like a bunch of affiliate running self-organizing groups around the world. We run the Denver Boulder one. There's one in Seattle, the huge one. There's one in San Francisco, obviously. There's one in Chicago. There's one everywhere. And if you don't have one where you are, just open one. We're running a hackathon, and it's coming up in a few weeks, or I guess next week. It's this weekend. What am I talking about? This weekend. Our hackathon is this weekend. So definitely you guys should, if you're into this and you're in Denver Boulder area and you want to hack with us, and we have a bunch of, like 12 Labs is there, a bunch of other folks as well. If you will send me a link to post, I'll definitely boost this as well. If you're listening to this, you're from this area, you want to hack with us, it's going to be awesome. Absolutely awesome. All right. So here's the demo for the daily voice chat demo. If you guys remember Moshi that I've talked about, I also did a demo before. Moshi was a specific model that was like end-to-end model. This is not the end-to-end model. This is Grok and LLaMA 3.1, which they already used, and this daily company and this RTVI protocol. And they claim to have a 500 millisecond voice-to-voice demo. So let me see if I can click this guy, and then let me see if this will come through. Hopefully this will come through. I'm going to use the 70B and start. Hey there, tell me a story about a dog.
There was a little dog named Max. Max loved to play fetch and go on adventures. Thank you so much for the upgrade. I'm excited to see how my new capabilities will help me assist and chat with you even better.
So you just upgraded me to LLaMA
Talk
3.
to me like a
on?
pirate.
Ye upgraded me model. Did ye? Error. Thanks for the swashbuckling tech boost,
Tell me a
matey.
story about 2 dogs and a cat.
You're looking for a tale of furry friends, eh?
Wait, actually, 2 ducks
Be
in a
3
pond.
swashbuckling friends. 2 scurvy dogs named Duke and
2
Dixie.
ducks in a pond.
Here want a tale of feathered friends, eh? All right then.
Speak
Settle
with a
your-
French accent.
Zoot. I have become a French chatbot, no? All right, let me try again.
Okay,
Avec un
thank you.
de rien.
Demo.rtvi.ai, you can try this yourself. The latency here was around 500 milliseconds, which was dope. I hope you could hear this, right? I was asking, and on the fly, I was getting a reaction. This wasn't like real time. This wasn't one model, but this was like an end-to-end demo with Grok, and this used LLaMA 3.1, 70B or 8B, and different voices as well. It's definitely super, super cool. I add this to the top notes, and the protocol that they released allows you to run like these demos like this and build demos like this yourself. So shout out to the folks who built this. Maybe we'll bring the guys behind RTVI to talk about this in ThursdAI and next ThursdAI. Besides this, folks, I think that this is all that we want to cover on ThursdAI. We're not going to do a TLDR because pretty much this is all that we wanted to cover. I will say that there's not a better week that I wanted to come back to than this one. There's not a better week. This has been probably the craziest week for open source AI or open weights AI since we started doing this, 100%. Since we started doing this, we were like, okay, when is open weights on open source is going to beat whatever foundational frontier models out there? Honestly, many of us didn't actually believe that this is going to happen because some people believe that the gap is widening, and holy shit, like we actually got to see this. We actually got a model that beats whatever we have in production, and we can run this. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's a monster, like Matt said. Yet maybe it's not for production, but we can run this. And we can store this on a thumb drive and keep it for emergency purposes for later. There's a bunch of stuff we can do. It's incredible. So shout out to everybody from Meta who hopefully at least some of you are listening to this, and huge appreciation to all of you for working on this. Shout out to Zuck and everybody at Meta for releasing this incredible thing. Incredible thanks for everybody on the stage who joins me from week to week here. LDJ, Nistan, Wolfram, Jungyang was here before. Matt, thanks you for coming. A bunch of other friends, Yam as well. Thank you. A huge thank you for everybody who listens to this week after week. This has been definitely one of the bigger shows that we had, all of you in the audience, and we're obviously going to be here next week as well. And I'm really hoping to relax a little bit next week, because I don't know if I can take more of weeks like this, because we cannot keep having state-of-the-art day after day. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But if we will, we'll be here to tell you all about this. With that, I want to thank all of you for coming, and we'll see you here next week. Cheers, everyone. Oh, and of course, subscribe to the podcast and give us 5 stars on Apple. Thank you.